Okay,
Yeah, there we go.
perfect.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for doing this.
no problem.
And so why body en route? That's kind of French.
I guess that's true. It is. Well, it was kind of just like a play on words. I coach actually a lot of climbers too, and I felt that, climbers are always on routes. Like that's what you say, like a climber's on a route. And I also work with a lot of, I don't know, I feel like my niche has become a lot of people that either want to continue doing their sport or they, have had a previous injury or want to get back to where they were. So a lot of times, I mean, you're always en route, like en route for your body and a way to just keep going and doing whether it's the sport that you love or, starting out on a new thing, a new route.
So if we get backwards a little bit more. Where does all this coaching, like inspiration or like desire of wanting to do this kind of career come from? Like, what's the story?
That's a good question too. So I actually started training, officially being paid in college after I wasn't running anymore. So I ran D1 collegiate and basically have always been coached my entire life. But I kind of found that when athletes aren't with their coaches anymore, they have a hard time figuring out what to do. And when I was off the team, I pretty much I felt lost, honestly. I felt like I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I started kind of training myself. And I started training other people. And I mean, honestly, ever since I was little, I kind of always was like, let's go for a run. And I would try to make friends, do whatever the coach had me do. So I think all trainers kind of have begun when they were kind of kids too.
Without even noticing, kind of.
Without even noticing, yeah. So I feel like, I began honestly when I was a kid, but kind of really became a job when I was in college and continued on as I, moved to Colorado. And I really just, I loved the idea of working with athletes. And in Boulder, I feel like everyone is essentially an athlete. Honestly, it's one of the
Really?
most like intimidating places for sure. Yeah, I mean, you have elite cyclists, triathletes, runners, trail runners, climbers, anything that, I mean, the first thing people ask is, oh, like not what is your job? What's your sport? Like you
Really?
come here. Yeah, it's pretty funny.
So you moved there after college?
Yeah. Yeah, I moved here after college and I had to do an internship to graduate actually. And I wanted to be a strength and conditioning coach and I actually ended up heading that direction. But then I got CSCS, which honestly was really difficult. I
Yeah.
didn't think it was going to be that hard. And I did an internship at a climbing gym. I originally wanted to be at the Olympic Training Center. You graduate and you think you know everything. And then as you get older, you're like, I know nothing. But yeah, I graduated and I was like, yeah, I'm going to get an internship. They'll accept me. Like, I just graduated college. And no, definitely not. They didn't even respond, I don't think. So I had a backup plan just because I needed, points to graduate. And I learned a lot because I honestly, when I moved here, I hadn't really climbed. So it was pretty intimidating because there's a lot of pros here. And I come in and I want to train people, and I haven't even really climbed. But I actually had done another internship at CU Boulder and with all the strength coaches and got to work with, basketball, soccer, dance, runners, like everything collegiate. I really liked it, but honestly, I was too soft-spoken for it. It's pretty male-dominated, and I was told one-on-one with the strength coaches, they were like, Jess, you've got to be louder. Like, you're good at programming, but you got to be louder. And I was like, I don't want to yell. So, yeah, I ended up going back to personal training just because I have more of a nurturing coaching style.
Yep.
So, but yeah, I ended up doing an internship at CU after. But I had a coach say, though, they said, because I was still training climbers, but they said, well, Joss, you should consider yourself a movement coach. Like, don't just like, you're not the actual climbing coach. You're not the actual running coach. Like, you're there to help them get strong, to be able to do their sport. And honestly, that stuck with me. So it's kind of changed my perspective, and hence kind of the body and root. I was like, all right, everyone here is coming to me because they want to continue doing their sport, not because they want to be crazy strong, because if they want to do that, then they're going to go to their actual specific coach, right?
And how long has this journey kind of been going through?
Let's see. It is 2018. So probably about like 8 or 9 years. Yeah.
Wow. And have you became louder?
Have I become louder? Maybe a little bit, but not really. I would say, like, I'm not going to yell at someone really if they're doing something. A lot of the people that I tend to get are similar personalities. I think it kind of ends up working out that way. Like, a lot of trainers, they attract people that are similar. And then, every so often I get someone that they come to me and they want a specific goal, and then they're out pretty quickly because we just maybe don't mesh. And I think that's totally okay. I think that, that's why there are so many options. There are so many coaches because there's a lot of different personalities in the world. And I think that's okay. Yeah.
How has training affected like your own personal training? So like you finished college. So at some point you didn't have any more coaches for you.
Totally.
And then you started, how did you now speaking, do you program for yourself? Do you have specific goals for like climbing, or like, what's that all about?
Yeah. So I would say, I go through different cycles. It really depends on how busy I am. So it's more, I would say here it's pretty busy fall, winter, spring, because I'll get, the winter sports like skiing, snowboarding, Nordic skiing, and they'll start to come a little bit before winter. And then it's really slow for me in the summer. So in the summer, I'll tend to climb outside a lot more. But my training will be more like the spring, because outside is like in season. Because a lot of times I'll go alpine because I'm mainly in Boulder. But yeah, so I'll train. I kind of treat it almost still like a collegiate type of training program, because I'll go in season, because I think it's also important to take breaks, because I've done where I don't take breaks and I always get hurt. Right. So I think that's also super important for people to cycle in breaks too. And then it's okay to get a little out of shape, like, because your body needs to kind of reheal all the tissues, and it's good for you to have just like a mental break too, So yeah, I would say I still kind of do it in seasons. Like, I also just kind of started getting into Nordic skiing, and so I'll for sure start now, and I'll create my own program. Honestly, a lot of times sometimes I'll be lazy too, and I'm like, I'll create, someone else's training program, and then I'll modify it for myself. Like, I'm more into like, okay, I'm going to create a client's training program, get super into theirs. And then when it comes to myself, I do let it go. Sometimes I mainly just try to do injury prevention for myself. And then You know, if I can get in 3 main lifts, you know, a few times a week, then I'm like, that's good enough. I feel good. More about not overdoing it.
Right.
Yeah.
When I came across her profile, and like that's what stunned me the most is pretty much when you had your mastectomy. So I'll let you. I'll kind of let you go into that. Like how, how what happened? Like how was like as much as like the process through all the recovery? Like I'd really like to dig into that.
Yeah. So I told this story a lot. So I always am like, am I repeating? Weird.
Yeah. Does it get
Yeah.
emotional?
I think in the beginning, it's been about a year and a half now. So I'm pretty much almost fully recovered. I do get a lot of messages from other women that are thinking about it or they're scared. And honestly, that's why I've kind of decided to be pretty open about it. When I first found out that I had the BRCA gene mutation, I was honestly just confused. I didn't really know what it meant. And so I ended up diving in, looking, you know, on Google, what was it? And then I feel like, as I gathered information, it was more like the scientific portion where it's like, all right, it's just a broken gene, you know, just trying to compartmentalize things. And really then my second instinct was to reach out to people. So I instantly tried looking other women up that had, I mean, specifically women that were athletic. And I couldn't find like anything.
Really?
Yeah, I found, and the few women that I did find, they were a lot older. They were, you know, in their 40s or 50s. So for me, I still questioned and had this, you know, unknown of how recovery was going to be. I didn't know, you know, was it going to be a year? Was it going to be 2 or 3? I've had a lot of other bumps that I think recovery could have been a little bit faster. And I did find this other woman that she had done CrossFit, and she had a fairly quick recovery, but climbing is just so different. It's such like, it's all upper body, especially bouldering. It's so much power. And so for me, I couldn't even find another climber. So it was just more of a shock. And I then realized I had to then make my own path. But I reached out to a lot of women. Some responded, some didn't. And I was super grateful for the women that did. And so I feel like it's just kind of giving back too. Like, so I'll typically hop on the phone. I'll do short conversations with women if they just want to talk, do the surgery. And so I think making the decision, it was a really big one, but in the end, I'm not going to get cancer now. So
yeah, that's the good thing.
Yeah.
So your rehab, like did somebody take that kind of contract and take care of you like across all that fully recovery, or did you kind of like with your knowledge went through like all that?
Totally. Yeah, I had no coaches or anything.
Really?
I honestly, if there was someone, that would have been the time for me to get a coach again. But I couldn't find anyone. I couldn't, and I would have been very picky, just because of having coached myself the last 5 years. So I think it would have been something that I really wanted to know, that either one, it was a woman that had gone through it, that would have been the best. Another coach, strength coach, trainer that had been through it, I think would have been the best. But yeah, I couldn't find anyone. So yeah, I just ended up treating it like the best that I could, which was, okay, I'll just, it was essentially chest surgery. So, okay, what's affected my pecs? What's affected also, well, your entire shoulder, girdle, I mean, everything, basically upper body. I couldn't even lift my arms. I would say barely even 30 degrees in the beginning. So first I was like, okay, what would I had to almost separate myself. I would say, like, treat myself like a client, which a lot of times I honestly don't. I would say clients come first, and then I'm like, all right, I just need to not be injured to at least have fun doing my sport. I, competed since I was a child, but I definitely got burnt out. So climbing has been an awesome sport to do because it's so individualized, and it's not about, you can be competitive with other people, but it's like, it's you and like the rock. It's sort of like running. Like if you're going on a run, you don't necessarily need to even sign up for a race. You can have personal goals and then go from there. So it'd be like that for climbing. Like there are grades, but grades are kind of arbitrary, I think. Like every problem is made by a human anyways. And so it really depends. Like, did the person that create this problem, are they super tall? Because if you're a little bit shorter, then you're definitely gonna have to climb it differently. So usually if a problem is, they say like morpho meaning like if you're taller, it's probably easier.
Yeah.
So then it requires smaller people to have, I'm not that small, but like a lot of times you just need more power, which also goes back to recovery. Like I knew I would eventually need a lot more power. Finger strength is huge. So I started doing that a little bit, and I was able to do some finger workouts in the beginning with not having my arms above my head. So I actually would just hang weights with my arms by my sides. So there's a lot of training tools for climbing too, and I ended up using some of those in order to just get some grip strength back, because I would say it goes, fingers, shoulders, like trunk. So I just basically broke it down to, okay, first I need to increase my mobility because I could not lift my arms. But I had to be cleared, and I did see a breast PT in the beginning. But I ended up getting yelled at from the PT because I kept asking her, can I do this now? Can I do this? Like I wanted some sort of timeline, and she couldn't give it to me. Like she basically was like, you need to chill out. Like you, so a lot of times when women get mastectomies, they also get their lymph nodes removed. And when you get your lymph nodes removed, it affects your entire lymphatic system. So what can happen is you can get a ton of swelling if you come back too fast. You can get major infections, which is really actually common. And just a lot of bad things can go wrong. I hadn't known that I didn't get my lymph nodes removed, but the PT, she thought that I did. So, and she actually ended up telling me, like, you don't know, you weren't awake. And I go, well, I'm pretty sure I would know, like, going into surgery if I was going to get a piece of my body removed, which I totally understand. She's being extremely protective. She's seen a lot of shit. Like, she told me crazy stories. I ended up, almost a year later, connecting with her again, and she had asked me to train actually other clients. So, sorry, I was just checking my battery. Tables turned. It was actually really awesome that she ended up, I felt like honored that she wanted me to work with mastectomy clients after. But yeah, she was just very cautious, and she had seen other athletes that had gotten their lymph nodes removed, and just have to go through it all over again. So, I mean, she's definitely protecting me, but I just wanted to push it. It's just like, I didn't want to be able to, I didn't feel myself at all. It's not, I mean, I've had labor and surgery, and I've just also have had a numerous amount of injuries. And I mean, you, at the end of the day, can always do something else.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you can always, if your shoulders are bugged, yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So when you've had, an injury, you can always, do something else. And what sucked was I couldn't do anything else. Because I had drains connected, it's still there was just so much, and they had gone under my muscle, taken everything out above my muscle. It's essentially like an amputation. I mean, it is. And so I just felt like I was going crazy because a lot of the PTs and the surgeon, they're just like, you 100% have to take at least, I think it was almost 2 months fully off. It was insane.
That's crazy.
I mean, as a coach, as a trainer, any athletes that listen to this, I mean, can you imagine? It's one thing when you're like, oh, I just, I'm in crutches and I can still do core, but I can still lift. You can figure it out typically. But for an athlete to be like, no. And she stood over me and pointed her finger and was like, you cannot, because I will not see you have to redo the surgery. Because essentially you're just starting from the beginning. So, I mean, I heard that, and all that, the process, I would honestly say the most emotional was after, because I felt like I was being tortured. Even I felt like I should be rewarded, for doing this thing and preventing, and it didn't feel like that at all after. I would say, the first 4 months, I just felt like first I got extremely out of shape, and then it was not like any other injury I've had, or even surgery. After you hit a certain point of healing, you're sick, and then you just linear get better. If you're a previous athlete, typically you have enough muscle memory that you can get back into your sport fairly quickly. It was just the most bizarre thing. Yeah, I think just your entire system gets shocked. So, and maybe I could have done some other slight movements in the beginning. And I think whether or not it was the PT I had, and I was too coddled in the beginning. But they also were like, you've been our fastest recovery. Will you work with other mastectomy clients? So it was cool to hear that, but I was like, what? Yeah, sure, I'm starting to do stuff in 6 months, but I felt like that was forever.
You must have had that crave for dopamine. I mean,
So, yeah, oh my gosh, I just wanted to sweat, and you weren't even allowed to get your heart rate up at all. Yeah.
Did you get into these, what were how did you cope with that during, obviously, there must have been little signs of depression and
oh, totally. Yeah. So I think my way of coping with it was I ended up doing a nutrition cert. I just was okay, education, I just dive into something else.
Smart.
So yeah, I was well, I've been wanting to do these other certs, so I guess now is the time.
Yeah, you have some time from development here there.
Totally, yeah. So I did some continuing education, which I always have to do anyways, but sometimes I feel like it takes me a little bit longer than I want to, because you just get busy with programming and working with clients. And I mean, reality is I'm not in school anymore. So, if I have a scheduled day that I want to work on some stuff, sometimes I'm I'm going to work out instead. So, I mean, I'm human. It's fine. But it was cool to just be all right, you can't do anything else, so might as well do this. I got lots of I went out for coffee with friends. Like, I felt like, I'm like, oh man, is this like what normal people do? Like, what if they, like, if you don't work out, you know, when people are like, oh, I don't have time. I'm like, what do you mean you don't have time? Like, you know what else to do? Granted, my situation was different. I couldn't even really do my job. Like, I, at the time, wasn't training people online yet. I had worked at a climbing gym previously. And then, honestly, when I had taken that large of a break from the gym, I realized I wasn't feeling it anymore, and I needed to do something on my own. So, and I really just wanted to start to work with mastectomy clients, and I felt like I needed just a safer space. The gym I was working at, I mean, first off, I had already told you there's a lot of pro athletes here. So they come in and, you know, or there was like this power lifter guy that had come in and he would lift really loud and grunt. And that is totally fine, especially for that gym and a lot of other gyms. But I just felt like, again, I wanted almost a more nurturing environment for potential clients. And I ended up, it was really sad the way that I ended up finding this gym. It was a family friend, and he actually has equivalent to what's, I actually forget what it's called. It's a pretty long name, but it's essentially equivalent to MS. And I have worked with MS patients in the past, but honestly, I didn't have, I wasn't emotionally strong enough because I would take their pain home and I would just like cry. So,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I think that people who end up, like especially nurses or anyone who ends up working with people who have disabilities, or, you know, even any like climbing sports or Paralympics, like those people are saints. Because I just feel that, you know, a lot of times, like this specific client, they have a lot of depression, and he was an extreme athlete previously, and it's only going to get worse, you know. So it just gets super. He'll have days where like there is, you know, the slightest bit of strength improvement, but the reality is he's not going to get better, you know. So but he needed a trainer at the time. And this, honestly, it's just, I think a lot of times it's luck and it's timing and if you're ready when things happen. And he needed a trainer. He worked at this specific gym and he was like, well, let me ask if you can come work there. You know, and I didn't have any other clients at the time because I had taken a large break. So I was like, yeah, you know, like, and it was going to be pretty mellow because he can't really lift that many things. Nothing's more than 10 pounds. And I wasn't cleared for lifting more than 10 pounds. So I was like, all right. So a lot of times I just do body work and help him through mobility because that's like the best thing, because a lot of times he's not even moving around too much. So I was like, all right, this is going to be like the perfect intro back. And it was, honestly, I still work with him, but it's really hard. But I did get to come to a new space, and it was exactly what I was looking for at the time. And then I slowly, honestly, it was just like word got out that I was training people again. Because I mean, I took probably like 4 months off of training.
Really?
Yeah.
So you kind of like stopped training all your actual clients and just like...
Yeah. And a lot of there was clients that would email me and be like, hey, are you ready to train yet? And I just didn't. I honestly felt I felt a little lost because I was like, I can't even lift 10 pounds barely. How am I supposed to train them? You know, I felt that I didn't deserve to train them. Like I felt like they should probably get another trainer. Which that was hard because that had been my job for a while. So
what did you do during those 4 months? I mean, for work or for like, did you still...
So I had like odd jobs, really. Like if someone needed a sitter, if someone, you know, like I had this one client, I got actually a couple grants from some of the hospitals because they were like, you cannot go back to work for, maybe it was 3 months, but they were like, you cannot go back to work for at least 2 months. And that was if I had a desk job.
But that's kind of good though. Like, I mean, at the same time, I believe, well, that's what I think is like maybe those months, those weeks kind of like put you back into perspective and make you realize, okay, well, am I really made for this job? And then by craving it so much, you're like, oh, well, I actually really love doing this.
Yeah, no, I absolutely love it. Like, I never feel like I go into work dreading it, ever. Do I dread programming sometimes? Sometimes.
But now that you're more into the online coaching, do you still do as many personal training, or you're dividing that a certain way?
I would say it's flipped a little bit. Especially in the summer, I was probably like 80-20, online 80, which ended up being also amazing for the summer because this was my first summer getting to climb outside. So I was just so excited, and honestly, I was psyched to not be like indoors all the time, and I could set chunks of time to, set up clients' programs and or hop on a call. And then
I've seen all your videos. You're a beast on those. Holy crap!
Yeah, it's been a long time though. Like it's now 1.5 years. So, but yeah, I got to go to Costa Rica for 2 weeks and still get to, still work, so I feel like that's been an amazing opportunity. I do crave meeting people in person. I don't do it quite as much. But I think that I'd like it to be maybe 50-50, where I still have that option to, if I wanted to take a little vacation, I would still work on the vacation. I feel like you're never really off anyways. Like there's always something you can do. But yeah, Costa Rica was a cool trip too, because I had labrum surgery in, God, I don't even remember what year that was. Maybe 2000, let's see, 12, I think. It was 2012, maybe 2011. But I had torn my labrum a few years previous to that. And it was surfing, so the board hit me and it dislocated my arm. And I honestly then just had anxiety ever since, because I had every summer I'd go home, because I'm from California. I would go surfing, and I would re-dislocate my arm like every single time. And granted, I didn't really know about training because I was just running in college. So, I'd dislocate my arm and it'd be like so sore for like weeks. But I was like, it's fine. I don't use my arms really as much for running. So I did it for a few years, but I do wish I got a little earlier, because what happened was obviously the tear got way worse. It was like halfway off. And the surgeon was like, I don't even understand. And I had started to climb while I had the torn labrum, but it actually ended up feeling stronger because I had no upper body strength previously from just running. Runners have like the big legs, but like skinny arms, kind of like cyclists. And so I was like, oh, my shoulder's like starting to feel more solid. Maybe I don't need surgery, until I started climbing a little bit harder. And then it would literally sublux when I would reach for a hold. So I was like a doll or something. So I then realized I needed to get shoulder surgery. So again, going back to like the mastectomy, I felt like I was like, oh, I've been through labrum surgery. It's fine. Like I'll be able to get through this. And I ended up stronger after, like I feel like most athletes after a surgery end up more motivated and stronger. So
100%.
Yeah. So I went into this mastectomy like, oh yeah, I'm psyched. I'm going to get stronger. And then I didn't, not for a while. Like I feel like
Are you now though?
I am back to where I was previously, but I don't feel like I'm like stronger.
But you probably will be.
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. So my other bump in the road was I found out essentially 2 months later after the surgery that I had another torn labrum on my other side. So I kind of, and it's a small tear. So, and I know all the rehab. So I'm like, I'm going to take care of this and make sure that I can hold. I just couldn't do two, like, because I had the first surgery, the second one, the reconstruction, which was 2 months later. So that was a tease because I had the first one and then I knew 2 months later I was going to get another surgery. So any recovery I'd had went right away, like immediately. So that was probably the hardest part because I had two surgeries for the mastectomy. One was the actual one, then second was reconstruction. So yeah, I mean, then it was like, great, 2 months later, surgery again. Okay, now you're starting all over once again. But yeah, when I had the labrum surgery, I was like, oh yeah, like 4 months, no problem. So then when I found out I had another tear after all those two surgeries, I just couldn't handle it. I was like, I don't think I can do it. Like I start over again, like one more time. I mean, and I had talked to the orthopedic and he told me it wasn't that bad. I mean, reality is you can't really tell how bad a tear is on an MRI. Like you can get a pretty good estimate, but he just was like, Joss, you've been through so much. Like I think like unless it starts really bugging you again, like from your other shoulder, like if it starts bugging you that much, then come back and talk to me. But he's like, just rehab it. You know what to do. I'll give you a PT like right off so you can have someone watch you for a little bit, but just wait. And like I heard those words and I was like, okay, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna see how it goes. And I think another thing that was hard was I lost a lot of body proprioception, which I have never lost in my entire life. So that was the most bizarre. And yeah, to like not have any like of the old coordination you had or not have anyone to help you, get it back. So when I saw the PT for my shoulder, then I mean, it was the old stuff that I knew, but it was nice for someone to watch me. And then probably a year later after that, because I'm at a year and a half right now, about a year later, because my back had been hurting the entire time. And I was like, man, it just must be because I've been lying around, like my core is weak, like my entire trunk has just like totally, atrophied, I'm sure. So I'm sure it's that, like I kept telling myself that. So then I just waited, and I waited a full year, which is terrible. I should have gotten it checked up earlier, but I just was like, it's just probably the mastectomy. It's probably the mastectomy. Like, kept thinking it was that until a year later, I'm like, all right, I don't think it's the mastectomy. So I go in, I get an MRI, and I find out I have a herniated disc. So it's like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, I have the worst luck. So then I started then some rehab for that. It's like, I would say 80% right now.
Yeah, herniated back disc are just like, if they're not too bad and you're kind of strong, you can always kind of work with it.
Totally, yeah. Yeah, and so, but I think I probably had it, honestly, maybe even before the surgery.
Right.
Like, who knows?
Being athletic and not doing all what you've done, like that
totally.
probably happened there.
Yeah, but I think what happened was, I mean, who knows, but I like to think that it got worse because I was lying around, and I wasn't able to do stuff, and I did lose all of my trunk stability. And then maybe when I started to come back, maybe even just me doing like a little too much might have just like popped that disc out a little bit, and had it herniate. But I just had like achy back, and it still kind of is a little achy if I sit down too long. So I'll try to like work standing up. But yeah, I think that's going to be a little bit of a journey, but I'm pretty much doing everything I want to. The one thing that I was okay with taking a break for a while because I was so burnt out of running, but now I really would like to run again. So I'm like, all right, first I feel like I should be able to like lift a little bit before I can really run. I've been hiking a lot. I can jog like 30 minutes, but if I go, I mean, what sucks is with disc herniation, or at least for me, I don't know if it's like this for everyone, but when I go on runs, like it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt when I'm running, but then after I pay for it. So, and maybe it's the endorphins, maybe it's because I'm like, yeah, I'm running, like, and I'm all psyched. And then it's also dangerous because, you know, I do have that base from running my entire life. So like, I'm going to go out and
your engine's built for that.
Yeah, it's built for it. And then I'll go for over an hour and then I'm like, oh yeah, that felt good. And then I pay for it for like a week. So I've learned my lesson. But yeah, I think just kind of throttling and like playing with about 30 minutes is kind of what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm definitely trying to program in some super light lifting. Hoping to get back to that, but climbing's going well. So I'm psyched about that. So I kind of, that has been my point of where, okay, I think I'm fully healed because climbing feels really good. And my thoracic, like my spine, upper body, upper back just got so tight. It is one thing that I have to always stretch all the time because my chest just gets super tight. Like it
gets kind of stressed. You kind of just like, ugh.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It just like, I mean, you kind of imagine if you had something in the way of your bicep, right? Like imagine you could never contract, right? Like that's essentially what I have under my pec.
And it is the skin tissue?
So I have basically it's the implant, my pec, and then skin.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like a guy, like a guy with an implant. Yeah, for sure. I felt like definitely weird about that for a little bit, and I think, and I'm really open about all this, but yeah, like when I do push-ups, the implants totally move to the side. It's so annoying. Yeah, no, and I don't get it because like some bodybuilders, like I did find this site, like, because I was like, there has to be something. And bodybuilders, women that do competitions and stuff, they'll get boob jobs and that's what happens to them. But I was like, why would someone do that to themselves? And I had almost this like judgmental phase where I felt bad for being like, why would they do that? I'm not doing it for that. But like, in a way I am, right? Because I wanted to still feel like a woman. So I was like, maybe that's what they wanted to, you know?
Yeah.
So,
but it's more of a superficial world as well.
I had to kind of change it and yeah, for sure. Yeah, like everyone, it's their body and they can do whatever they want. So I definitely realized I was like, oh man, like I for sure judged people before. Like, so that was nice to know that I've like, okay, taken a step back and realized that I was doing that because I think sometimes people don't realize they're doing it. But yeah, so I think climbing was my point of realizing that I had finally recovered.
And I've also seen that you've been doing this kind of side project with the construction of the van. Yeah. Is that like something like to kind of escape your day-to-day like regular routine, kind of like a hobby, or?
No, actually. So my significant other, we lived in a van. And right now we're kind of like in between, like in a garage, because we're kind of also property managing. at the same time. But no, we're rebuilding our home. So we sold our old van and we lived in it for a couple of years, and it was awesome. And pretty much we had this time where we had to either decide, do we want to stay in the van and keep this one? Do we want to sell it and potentially put a down payment on, you know, a small apartment because it's so expensive in Boulder?
So you guys been living in a van for a couple of years?
Yeah. We've been living in it for a couple of years. And then we decided, let's, you know, fuck it. Let's do another one. Let's sell this one, get a slightly bigger one, slightly more miles. So it was a cheaper vehicle.
What brand is it, that one?
So the one we have now is a Sprinter.
Okay, yeah.
170. So it's not the extra long one, but it's like the one in between, but not the normal short one.
You used to have the short one?
Yeah, we used to have actually a Transit, a Ford Transit.
Okay.
Which they honestly look like Sprinters. They're just slightly different. It ran off of gas. This one runs off of diesel. But yeah, we are building it out, and it's kind of hellish. No, it's not quite a hobby. We're both kind of like, you know, bickering sometimes. I mean, you imagine just like building a house too. It's like the same thing. But like we have a little bit of a deadline because he starts law school in 2 weeks. Right. So yeah, I mean, and he's like totally the brains of all of it. Like, I don't know how to do the electrical. I don't know how to build the structure. I'm like, I'll hand you the screw.
But I mean, this kind of like, I mean, you guys live in there because by choice, or is it really because it's too expensive in Boulder?
I would say it's a little bit of both.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it obviously is a choice, but I mean, we could afford rent. Yeah, we can totally afford rent. But when we decided to do this, yeah, it was to save money and in hopes of like someday getting a house. But then after a couple of years, we were like, yeah, we've saved quite a bit, but this isn't so bad. And so we were like, let's just keep doing it. So, I mean, our goal is to at least stay in the van minimum 3 more years. And if we...
During the winter, you can stay in it?
Yeah, so we have a heater.
Okay.
Or we need to build a heater in the new one, but our old one had a heater. And it pretty much temperature regulated the entire van, similar to a house.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's called a Wabasso heater.
Wow. Yeah. How cold does it get in Boulder?
It can get in the negatives, but that's pretty rare. I mean, I think maybe only a few weeks here and there, but maybe even only a couple. Let's see.
Because we get minus
Probably
30s in Montreal.
No, not that cold.
Okay, we get that.
maybe like every so often, and it's like a big deal if it's minus 10.
Oh my God.
So, but I mean, yeah, it gets cold, and there's definitely like in our old van, we didn't have insulation behind our heads where we were sleeping. So that kind of sucked. I would like wrap my head or wear a beanie when I slept. Like it almost kind of felt like you were camping, like snow camping or something, but like the rest of your body would still be warm. So it was the most bizarre thing because the van was heated, but like your head would still get cold. But that's because we had a window right there. So I'm so psyched. In this new van, we have like a lot of insulation, which helps with both the heat and the cold. And honestly, the winter was not as bad as the summers. The summers, just FYI, I did not bring my battery, and I have about 13%. So okay. just heads up.
Well, so what we'll do is I have this last question about the van, and then I have 3 final questions that I always ask everybody.
Sure. Yeah.
So in the van, I'm very curious about this. So you kind of became a little bit more minimalist in that way, and that's probably the reason why you've actually enjoyed it a little more, because I feel that
Totally.
like it helps the mind just to reconnect with life a little bit more.
Yeah, but if I guess I take a little step back, we were technically in the van when I had the mastectomy, so that didn't work. We actually ended up having to stay at different people's houses, which the community here is amazing, and so many people helped me throughout the entire process. But I definitely couldn't be in the van when I was recovering, because I couldn't even get, like, the bed was really high. I couldn't get on the bed because I couldn't use my arms. Yeah, so that was when it definitely got a little stressful. And Galen, my significant other, he just he felt a little helpless at the time, and he just was like, I think we should just get a house, like, or an apartment, or we should rent again. And I was so stubborn. I was like, no, I don't want to pay rent. Like, I now know what it feels like to not pay rent. And like, this is only going to be a small portion of time. And I was like, maybe we just, like, if one of our friends need us to, we can pay rent, just for like another month or two. But I really didn't want to move out of the van. And it's honestly, it's a way for people to bump an economy class, like, if you are not paying rent, you're saving thousands of dollars, every month. So I definitely suggest that to people if they can do it. Like, if you're like, I don't know how to save money, go live in your car.
Absolutely.
It's not for everyone, for sure. Like, I've had so many women be like, how do you do it? You don't look like you live in a van.
Look.
Yeah. They're like, you don't look like most of my clients don't even know I live in a van. I mean, granted, with social media and stuff they do, but like, I wasn't really posting about it the first year or two. So a lot of people are like, what? You live in a van? So, and I liked keeping it that way, but now I'm like, oh, whatever. Like, I don't look like I live in a van, like, whatever that means.
It is what it is anyways. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, maybe like I don't know. I mean, I can shower at the gym. Like, it's so easy. So what else do you really need?
Exactly. So let's go with the final questions, and we should definitely do this again.
Yeah, for sure.
So first one is, well, you might have heard it on the other podcast you listen. So what song represents you? So when you get in a room, or when you get into a band, like, what song goes out?
Ooh, I wouldn't say like a certain song, but I would say maybe, like, if you ask anyone, they'd be like, yeah, that's Joss's music. I always listen to like reggaeton or anything like salsa.
Nice.
Yeah, I
Vibes,
really, I love it. It's just super upbeat. It can have some mellow, but like, in general, it's pretty positive. Yeah.
Nice. And if you'd have to move to another country outside of the States where you already live, where would that be, and why?
So that's a tough question, because I haven't been that many places.
It could be somewhere that you've never been.
Yeah. I would say, honestly, though, like, maybe Mexico.
Nice.
Yeah, because we about it was like we went to Mexico for, oh no, it was this year. Hello. We went for like a month. Yeah, it was like pretty close to after my mastectomy, and I hadn't quite started my business yet, and Galen has time off before he starts school, so I was just like, let's go, and obviously we didn't have rent or anything, so we're like, this is like, when are we going to have this opportunity again, and that's actually when I started to climb again, was in December of I guess it would be still this, no, I guess technically it's last year, but yeah, so Mexico, because the culture is awesome, the food is amazing.
Food, huh? I love Mexico for the food.
It's amazing. The culture, yeah, everyone's so friendly. I mean, I'm Hispanic. A little part of it feels like home. And then there's so much dancing. They love dancing.
Reggaeton comes back on.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you guys drive down there?
No, we didn't. We debated about doing that, but no, we actually stayed with a couple climber friends, and it was awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Last question. This is a hard one, and it's a new one from the past podcasts I've done. And the question is, what advice would you give to a 10-year older of yourself?
Older, so future.
Earlier, I mean, sorry.
Earlier, 10-year older or younger. Okay. Okay. That's a tough question, but there's actually a lot of things I would say. If I was just going to say one thing, though, I think it would be don't procrastinate. But seriously.
Good. That's good. That's good. I like that.
Yeah. I think a lot of opportunity has come when I'm just put my head down and have actually done the things I need to, because you always have lists, but maybe don't make the list so long, just do a few things and accomplish it, and don't put 20 things on there because you're definitely not going to get them done. So yeah, don't procrastinate, maybe make the list a little bit smaller.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much, Joss. That's been pretty cool.
Yeah. No, this was awesome. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, for sure. We should do this again. I have so many more questions. You've kind of opened my mind across this past hour, I would say.
Well, cool. This was fun. I honestly love doing this, and I hope that more people hear about it too, because I've gotten so many questions from women, and it's just swelled my heart, and I'm so happy that I've been able to reach more people. And because of that, people have been like, you know what, I'm going to do it. I even had this woman, she messaged me and was like, I scheduled my appointment. So she's doing it, getting her mastectomy done. And I have one of my closest friends, her mother died from breast cancer, and she had to witness it. And she is I'm never getting it done. And now she's at least thinking about it. So I'm hey, little changes.
Absolutely.
About that. Yeah. Cool.
All right. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'll be in touch, and have a good day.
Yeah, you too.
Cheers.